I want to share something with you about space. This beautiful piece of life that everybody needs to incorporate into their own lives at some point. But not just any area of space, but a very specific area of space. An area you could also call the gap between. And this space is a space that you find between two very distinct things: stimulus and response. Or maybe you might see that as something happening and your reaction to what's happening. Now, I very deliberately use the word response to begin with because there is a distinction between responding to stimulus and reacting to stimulus. And more often than not, and a very clear sign that we're not properly engaging the space between stimulus and response, or even acknowledging that it exists, is when we react. Our reaction to a stimulus versus, here's the difference, our response to the stimulus means we're not acknowledging or making good use of the space that exists between stimulus and what we do with the stimulus. Why is this vital? Why does this matter? Why does this benefit you? What's in this for you? Let me tell you that. Your ability to acknowledge the space that exists there, to not just acknowledge it, but permit it to be put to good use by yourself, and to take it and expand it as large as necessary, allows you to take the areas that can be controlled by you back into your own hands. Think of it as taking the reins, right, and controlling the portion of the horse-drawn carriage that you can control, the horses. So while you can't control what happens to you all the time, while you can't control what happens around you or outside of you, the stimulus, right? Maybe someone hits you with their car, or someone tells you that you're horrible server, right? These are things we can't control. These are the stimuluses. More often than not, we react. But when we learn to acknowledge that there is a space, this valuable kind of space between something that's happening, very often feels like it's happening to us, and that our ability to use this space to take as long as we need to breathe, to process, to think, and to, most importantly, become very clear on what our values are and who we want to show up as, and to engage that space that exists there by incorporating the things that are actually important to us. That's when we really start to take control of our life. Because it just so happens that things are happening to us all the time. They're happening around us all the time. They're happening for us all the time. You can't control so many things, and that is so uncomfortable. That creates so much insecurity. So then how is it that we ever gain any sense of control in our own lives? And that is by taking control of your life in this very specific area, acknowledging this space and using it to your benefit, recognizing this space can be as big as you need it to be. Let's dive back into those scenarios and look closely at that. Someone hits your car. Your initial reaction is to be angry, or maybe to cry, to become emotional in some way, to express that, to shout at them, to blame them, to ask them how could they, to feel an opportunity very intensely to become a victim, and then a villain by maybe lashing back out at them. What this space allows us to do is to pause everything, to step back from and acknowledge our own sense of separateness in this moment, and to say, what do I need to do for myself? Do I need to breathe and evaluate the situation? Do I need to change my story or my belief about what's happening here and what the outcome has to be? I mean, sure, someone hit me, but it could have been a mistake. Could have been on purpose. Someone called me a bad waitress or waiter. They could just be having a bad day, right? Change your story, your belief, your thought process. To breathe through that, to breathe through the initial emotions that tend to overwhelm us in that moment. And then to say, what is important to me? What do I want? What do I desire? How do I want to show up right now in this moment? How should I act that is most aligned to my values, to what I believe is most important to demonstrate in life? And when we do that, we take the ball back in our court. We put our hands on the reins that were meant to be controlled by us. From the beginning, I mentioned just how easy it is for us to react to these scenarios. As a result of our reactions, we often feel a great deal of insecurity, a great deal of powerlessness, and we have a hard time noticing the choice we have in these moments. But when we acknowledge that space there, we give ourselves the space and the time and the clarity to realize, to take in everything that's going on in ourselves, outside of ourselves, and to realign ourselves with who we really want to be. And so that's why I'm here to encourage you, after giving you this little pointer, to use that space, to look for that space and to use that space, because I promise you it exists. To use that space to take the necessary steps to leading yourself back to a course that is most aligned with your values. So when things happen in your life, just like they will, you respond rather than react.